And we're live. What's up, Colin? This is the Vehicle Genius podcast number three.
Number three.
Today, we are going to talk a little bit about some individuals' car situations, including our very own Colin, and jam a little bit on helping some individuals find what their next ride might be.
Yeah. Yeah, our CTO Carl, right? He needs a car. He just moved here from Germany, moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Had to sell his car in Germany, obviously. He had a little Mercedes. And he's carless currently, which is an issue in a city like Atlanta where you pretty much need a car. And we're trying to help him find a car. He's given us a few parameters. Less than $15,000 would be perfectly ideal. He's a little bit of a bigger guy, and so in terms of height, and so we're thinking a small SUV would be a perfect fit for him. A smaller sedan probably wouldn't be the most comfortable thing for him, especially with all the options in the SUV world. And I think he was going to go see a Volkswagen Tiguan that we had found, but what happened with that one?
Carl has discovered what the used car market has been like for many people around the country over the past few years. And that's kind of crazy. He's found a few cars that he liked. Unfortunately, he wasn't in Atlanta and had scheduled to see them a week in advance or 5 days in advance. And then the car sold out from underneath him, which I
Yep.
think came as a bit of a surprise to him. But as Colin and I both know, super common, especially if the car's a good deal. You got 1 to 3 days to actually go out there, make an offer, make sure you like it, do your inspection, and pull the trigger, which for a car guy or someone who's done the process a few times is normal. But for the everyday person, that can seem like a lot of work and potentially a lot of stress.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's kind of discovering that now, which I think is really interesting because he's going to be more equipped to build solutions into our mobile app that fix the issues that he had. So he's getting some good real life experience right now. But at the end of the day, we're going to try to help him. So we're looking at Volkswagen Tiguan's. He's a big Mercedes guy. I think any sort of Mercedes small SUV is probably out. I mean, there is the early 2010s ML 350. That's the car that my girlfriend has, and she loves it, but it's a little on the bigger side. Not the best fuel economy, questionable reliability to say the least on those. The 350, the 3.5 liter engine's a good one, but in order to get under 15,000, you'd have to get one with a lot of miles, and that's probably not the best choice. Um, I mean, there's always the option of a RAV4 if he wants to go that route. I don't think he does. I think he wants something German. That's why he wanted to go the Volkswagen route. But other than the
Mm-hmm.
Tiguan, what other cars in your communications with him has he kind of resonated with? Has he tended to like? Has he pointed to being something that he would want to purchase?
Sure. I think Carl's coming from a pretty small car, and I think he thought he would be fine going into another small. He had an older Mercedes, I think C class, and he sold that in Germany, came here, and assumed that this would probably be something similar to what he wants, maybe just newer in the States. But I think Carl's quickly realizing that driving in big metropolitan areas in the US is slightly different. I think there is significantly more cars on the road, wider lanes, much bigger vehicles as an average. And so combining with the dude's like 6'5" height, I'm like, yeah, let's lean towards an SUV. So we quickly curbed a lot of the small sedans we were originally looking at. So today, the options we found, we've been looking at Volvo SUVs, like Colin said, Volkswagen SUVs, smaller crossovers. Carl does have his girlfriend living with him, but he's not a big family guy, nor do I think he has a lot of stuff here. So I think a crossover that fits him comfortably would be that sweet spot of you're big enough to not have to crouch down to get in. You feel comfortable on the roads here, but it's still not an extremely expensive car in comparison. Still gets decent gas mileage and still is of a brand quality he's looking for. So outside of that, I think there's some Q5 options, some X3, X5 options from BMW that we've looked at, but I still think there's a car out there that he hasn't quite found yet, and I know he wants to make the decision quick, but I think my experience alone, not including Collins, has shown me that having to make a car decision quick because you feel rushed and you just want to get it out of the way either forces you to spend too much or buy a car that you're looking past some of its red flags or getting into something you actually won't be happy with 6, 9, 12 months down the road. So,
And
Colin, like based on what you've seen over Carl's situation, is there some cars you think we should be looking at or some options or models that you think might actually fit his needs well, maybe outside of a European brand?
mm-hmm. So something that we always have to balance at Vehicle Genius is the practical, more ideal choice when in the contracts with some of our members, want to have a certain type of brand, want to have a certain like level of luxury. And so, in a perfect world, we say, get a RAV4, get a CRV. You're never going to have any problems. It's not going to be, the most luxurious experience. But that's probably not something he wants to go to. So it's up to us to kind of figure out what that middle ground is. Hear me out here. I don't know if I'd ever thought to recommend this car to anybody, but they're in his price range. They're not awful cars, and they're German. Mini Cooper Countryman. The slightly bigger Mini Cooper. It might still be too small, but the Countryman itself is a pretty big car. I don't think it's quite the size of the RAV4 or the Tiguan that he was looking at, but it's not too far away. It's German. The tech is not awful. The reliability, while early minis had their fair share of issues, by this time, like a 2016, they've been around in the States for 13 years at that point, or maybe longer. And so they figured some stuff out on the reliability front. I think it'd be a pretty cool car. The issue he would probably have with that is actually finding one. That's in his area, just because they are on the rare side. So that could be one of many options. Have you ever had any thoughts about the Mini Cooper Countryman, Drake?
Colin, it's funny you brought that up. So my mom has had kind of a funny ongoing joke in our family with the cars she's owned, she's picked out. She she had a beautiful back when I was younger, 20 or 2009 Tahoe LTZ leather DVD players in the back, and me and my brother loved that car. We'd be in the back watching movies, long road trips, had the flex fuel V8, so it got decent economy on highway. But she went to the Chevy dealership, and I think she leased that car, and she had to make the decision to buy out the lease or to get into the next one. And without any of us knowing, me, my dad, or even my younger brother, she got convinced to go into an Equinox, and she thought it was like an upgrade.
Oh
And she picked me
no!
up from work. I know. She picked me up from work one time and I was like, "Oh man, they stuck you with an ugly rental." And she's like, "What do you mean? I just got this car." And I felt terrible. I was like, "I can't believe I just called my mom." She just was coming home from the dealership and I told her
No!
that. And I was like, "What do you?" At first I was like, oh, I felt bad for calling her car ugly. But then I just sat there like, why did you make that decision? The Tahoe is incredible. What a nice car. They're built so well in comparison to some of the lesser GM models and American models. Like that truck platform is just durable and they
Yeah.
last for forever. And we love the car. And the Equinox, she ended up keeping for a few more years and it had problems and it wasn't that reliable. And that 2.4 motor feel like you had to wind it all the way out to get up to highway speed every single time. Even in all wheel drive mode, which definitely didn't help the small motor, it got stuck on snowy roads. So she knew that she probably got swindled at the dealership and they wanted to just move it on the lot and their Tahoe could sell for a lot. So she, one, stopped making those decisions by herself and she definitely had input from her son and her husband. But it came to a point a few years ago where she's like, "Hey, I need a new car," and me and her sat down and we kind of evaluated all of her options, and we ended up going online and we built her a Countryman, a brand new Mini Countryman
Really?
S, and so we did the like that Oxford green with that nice camel cross stitching seats. and got all the options. And anyway, she's had that car for the past 2 years and loves it. It's a great car. It's plenty of space. The headroom is always surprising in minis, and when you get the lifted all-wheel drive version, it feels comfortable
Yeah.
to like slide right in. It's not quite at a crossover height, but you definitely don't have to squat to get in.
Hmm.
And with the hatchback, you can fold the seats down. They fit an entire washing machine in the back. They went to
Really?
Costco and had to get a new one, and that thing fit in the back. So she's used the Mini as a quote unquote truck a few different times. And I'd recommend it, but I don't know if we can find Carl a countryman for his price range. I think they're expensive.
There will. So he'd have to get an older one. He wouldn't get the same one that your mom has. That's a crazy. What are the? I had no idea that your mom had a
I
countryman
know.
before I suggested that. That's so strange. Um,
I
I'm
know.
looking at Auto Trader now. Here, let me go ahead and share my screen so everybody can see this. Um, looking at some. So I put in the parameters, or I just put in in Atlanta. Let's go ahead and put in a
Mhm.
price here for him. Let's say $20,000 because there's nothing wrong with some negotiation to get down, just to see if there's any options out there. All right, there's a few. 24 results. I mean, these are going to be out of warranty. You're probably not going to buy one from the actual dealership. Wow, Countryman John Cooper works. What a cool car. I don't know if he needs that, but 120,000 miles. I don't know if I could recommend that for somebody else, but I would be intrigued. Here, I mean,
I
so
so
there.
I'm on. I've been looking like my parameters. I think I should probably put a year parameter in for Carl Search, but I've got up to 16,000. I've got 80,000 miles or fewer, and I'm looking in the SUV crossover. And I've actually just seen a few Countrymen's, but they're like a 2013 with 80,000 miles. And I love minis, but the if you have, in my humble opinion, if you have any element of British engineering, even though they're owned by BMW and most of the drivetrains made in Germany, there's still some unreliability that has to be associated with the brand, and that's kind of the gamble you take. And so, getting Carl's first car in the U.S. and he needs to rely on it, I think I definitely opt for as new of a model and as well taken care of, i.e., in most cases, as low as mileage as possible.
Yeah, I think that the one thing with Mini that really does hurt them is, they're not, when you buy them brand new, they're not like their price tags aren't to the level of a luxury car. They're cheaper than BMWs, and they're supposed to be, right? It's a Mini Cooper.
Yes.
But because of the fact that they're built by BMW, the repair costs are typically on par with those of BMWs. And so you're buying this car that is a little bit cheaper than BMW, still good build quality, still, some of the great traits of BMW, but it also shares the trait of having relatively expensive repair costs. And so, yeah, I think it is a risk. I think that this is probably the best one that I've found, but it is pretty heavily above his budget. He'd have to do some serious negotiations to get this underneath the 15,000 mark. But 2017 with under 60,000 miles isn't awful. I was looking at the pictures. This one has the Apple CarPlay, so he'd be happy with that, and it would feel like a more modern car. Um, this doesn't seem like an awful option to me if he's in a pinch and needs something quickly. But that said, is he willing to go over his budget for a Mini Cooper Countryman? Remains to be seen, and we'll work with him on that to get the answer. But this, if he wanted one and he fell in love with it, this would be a pretty good option. It looks clean. We can go ahead and check out the Carfax. I think they give it to you for free now on Auto Trader, which is quite a nice feature. Let's see here. Ooh, similar cars. Let's see what they have. Similar vehicles from this dealer. Ooh, a Traverse. Oh, an X4
So
28.
yeah, I
Wow.
mean, like I'm looking at like a GMC Terrain, and that's got the same build as a lot of those Equinox. And like that Traverse, I think the base Traverse shares the same motor, and I really don't think I could advise people to look at those vehicles. I
No.
think they work for many people and they're probably fine, but I do know from personal experience, my own mother, and seeing other ones for sale with motors that are blown. and the car has 110,000 miles and it needs a whole new engine. And I just think it was a bit of a miss on GM's part from like 2013 to 2018. And if you're going to spend that level of money, there's a lot of other options that are significantly more reliable.
Yeah, it's getting those cars specifically are getting to a point where GM probably should have done something about it. Like it's just way too common of an issue to have blown motors in those specific vehicles. Um,
At low
to
mileage,
yeah,
120, 130. It's like, ugh,
and really like
cars are supposed to last a lot longer now.
and there's no reason why, right? Like, I think for any car, if you really drive it hard and you really like, every time you get pulled to a stoplight and then like turns green and you gun it, like, obviously that's going to wear the car more. And so like those are considered edge cases, and those are the cars that are the ones you want to stay away from. It all accounts for these cars. They just go bad regardless of how they're driven. You could baby it for 120,000 miles and the car could still be grenaded and you'll need a new engine. It's honestly pretty sad for all the people that own those vehicles, that have loans on those vehicles, that can't necessarily don't have a
Mm-hmm.
clear path to get out of it. They're the ones that need help the most figuring out the car situation, because if something is wrong, they're going to be on the hook. There's no real warrant. It's out of warranty. It's a hard car to get an extended warranty for because these problems are so documented. And there's a lot of people, they sold a ton of them. They were popular cars. This isn't like a small niche problem. Like there's a lot of them out there. And, if you're one of those owners and you need help, we can help you. We'll figure out your situation. We'll get you out of something before something catastrophic happens. But in terms of this Carl search, I kind of want to take away what's your general approach with searches? Are you a make model search person, or are you a category / filters? Like, I want small SUV, I want luxury brands, I want price, I want this distance, and then show me everything
Sure.
you got.
I, I think, and it definitely changes, right? I think the car search methodology I use today is significantly different than what I used 3 years ago from what I've used 5 years ago. But
Yep.
primarily, I think what's important is to narrow down the honestly, I think I probably start with the budget, right? Because if somebody's
Yep.
willing to spend a good amount of money to get an expensive used car, then I'm happy going on these large platforms like Auto Trader, like Car Gurus, like True Car, and searching through dealership lots. Carl's at an
Yep.
interesting point where he's kind of at that inflection price point of the 10 to 15,000, where a lot of dealerships selling cars in that range are probably not great dealerships to be buying from. There are a lot
No.
of individuals who buy and resell auction cars. You don't really get a clean history, and it's very much cosmetically presented good to kind of cover up what might be under the hood in terms of potential problems down the road. And many times those dealerships honestly don't know if there's a problem or not. And there's no
Mhm.
shame in talking, poorly about them, but you just buy a car with potentially a lot of different owners and some option history, and it's been passed through a few dealerships. And those are the cars that you take the biggest gamble on. And I think honestly, people buying those cars are what ends up giving used car dealerships bad raps, because you buy a car and 3 months later it needs a major repair and nobody saw it coming, not the dealership, not you, and you couldn't have really predicted it. But at that price point, I would love to find Carl a car that's private party owned. I think in general rule of thumb when looking for cars, if you can find it from the person who's owned the car and owned the car for more than a year, ideally a handful of years, because they truly took care of the car because they relied on it. And if they have a great reason for selling it, that's kind of the perfect situation. Say they're moving, or they just bought a new car, or some actual reason that isn't like, oh, I'm selling it because it's starting to have problems and I'm hiding. But at Carl's point, to find some private party cars, a lot of private party cars aren't being listed on the major sites because you have to pay for
Mhm.
those listings, or it's a little more complicated to get going. And as I alluded to at the beginning of this statement, 5 years ago, many of the cars were still posted on Craigslist. Now,
Yep.
Craigslist has kind of shifted away. They started charging $5 per ad. So many people are like, I don't really want to pay to sell my car. I'll go on Facebook Marketplace. And that's a great place to find a lot of private party cars for sale. but it feels very much like a wild jungle of everything for sale. The filtering isn't
100%.
great. It's not just designed for cars. A lot of dealerships label their cars as private parties, so trying to
Yeah.
filter out actually good cars is pretty difficult. So Carl's kind of at a unique price point. I think this goes out to anyone who's listening. That $10,000 to $15,000 range is sometimes kind of difficult to find a really good car that's going to be reliable and checks all your boxes and is of a mileage that you're okay with. So I definitely think that's some just notes from two people who've done that for a while.
I agree on all points, and I think that something that is very easy for people to fall into the trap of is they start their car search and they're like, I think I want this type of car. So let me look at the parameters. Like, I don't know exactly what car I want, but let me start looking. Then they get overwhelmed. They're like, well, where do I even start? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
cars are good for me? What do I actually need? And then they get overwhelmed and they're like, oh, you know what? Let me just go to the dealership and ask them. And
Yep.
inherently, when you go to a dealership, the interests of the buyer and the interests of the dealership are misaligned. The only alignment is the dealership wants to sell a car and the buyer wants to buy a car. That's the only thing that that is aligned. And and other than that, everything else is misaligned. And so typically this leads to getting overcharged, getting taken for a ride in the back end process on these extended warranties. And so, the only other way, but the thing that dealerships offer is the ability to have a car expert talk to you, figure out what your needs are, and then make a recommendation. We also have that luxury. So but the difference is we have that luxury. We can make the recommendation. We do make the recommendation, but without all the bad stuff and without being like, oh, you should buy this car that's $4,000 over book, but you don't know that, and I'm telling you it's a great car. Like, no, that's really, really dumb, and the dealership knows that, and they still want people to do it because they're in the interest of making the most money on every single deal. And so we have the luxury of having a close relationship with our members, so that we can actually make these recommendations. And knowing Carl's situation, knowing that he's not really going to be driving that much. Maybe he might go on some road trips here and there, but it's more like going to be just around the town drive.
Sure.
Would a used Tesla Model S be the worst thing in the world for him?
That car is grossly underpriced. I don't trust it.
But the thing is, it's not.
Second year it came out,
The thing
109,000
is,
miles.
it's not
If you're gonna have
overpriced.
a problem with it, if you're gonna have a problem with any Tesla, it's that one. And not saying you will. I mean, they're generally reliable. But boy, have you watched how many YouTube channels that are focused on cars that buy a cheapest used Tesla in the US for about that price, and then they have a weird problem because the thing's like has the least amount of engineering, the least amount of build quality with the most miles. Couldn't
It's
recommend that
fair.
car.
I I understand. I think I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here. As a former owner of a 2013 Tesla Model S with like 80,000 miles, there were some kinks that needed to be worked out. Not necessarily in my ownership, but with the previous owner. They were still working things out. And the good news with Teslas, obviously, is that a lot of the repairs and a lot of the issues can be fixed via software updates. And they do that.
True.
And so my general thought process on early Tesla Model S: lower mile ones scare the crap out of me because they haven't been driven enough to have like all of the kinks ironed out. All the squeaks. You take it to Tesla, you get the service. Like they haven't been shaken down. Super high mileage ones scare the crap out of me. 300,000 miles, 250, because we just don't know. That might be the type of thing where in 10 years we think, oh, remember when we thought that we were scared of EVs being only lasting 300,000 miles and everyone should have known they last 600, 700,000 miles? That might be a potential future. Maybe. We don't have enough data on it yet to know that for sure. And so it still scares the crap out of me at 250. 100,000 mile Tesla Model S is the sweet spot because 100,000 miles to an EV is pretty much nothing. Like There's not a lot of moving parts. The battery degradation curve really doesn't pick up at all after the first 15,000 miles. So it's pretty steady. And at 100,000 miles, you're probably looking at around 15 to 18% degradation, which is going to stay consistent for the next 50 to 60,000 miles after 100,000 miles. They're cool. They're cool cars. They're like, they're basically spaceships on wheels. At least that's how they felt in 2013. And they still feel like that, to an extent today, even though there have been a bunch of updates. But I think the key is, in general, the consumer and I'd argue the automotive industry is putting onto Teslas and putting onto EVs the same stereotypes in cars that we've had for years, and they don't fit. And what I mean by that is, has over 100,000 miles. Oh man, things might start popping up and breaking. Like, yes, because in early Tesla, it's possible. But I think the likelihood of any issues arising after 100,000 miles for this car compared to the car on the far left, the 2018 or 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee, I think are completely skewed. After 100,000 miles, the Jeep Grand Cherokee could have an issue when at any point things are wearing, a lot of wear items. You don't know what's going to happen. After 100,000 miles in a Tesla Model S that's been shaken down and kind of figured out, like, not that much should go wrong. Like, the battery still has like hundreds of thousands of miles presumably to go, unless there's some sort of like, crazy like edge case battery situation, which I don't think there will be. And these cars come with free supercharging for life. That was one of their selling points that Tesla put out there, and that has become increasingly valuable over time as the supercharger network grows. And so these cars can be road trip anywhere and charged for free, which is crazy. And I don't know if you saw, this car is listed as a Tesla Model S 60 right here. Tesla Model S. Oh, it doesn't say on here. It said it
I see.
somewhere.
I see it
But
on the title.
yeah, wait, where? Tesla Model sedan. It said so
2013
yeah, Tesla Model S60,
S60.
right? It says Tesla Model S60. But if you click in here, I'm going to share the tab of the actual car here. Let's scroll through the pictures.
I will say, before you
Look at
keep
that.
going,
It's
the
an
saving grace,
85. It's
oh,
mislabeled.
what a scope. What a scope.
It might be even better
And
deal than we thought.
it's a private seller. It's not a
Yes.
dealership.
Yes. That's what I'm going to do.
I think it's potentially worth messaging this seller right now and
Am I
seeing
slowly convincing you? Am I convincing you slowly?
I mean, the only thing that I will say is it's above Carl's budget and
Fair.
it's not an
Fair.
SUV. But
Well, it is a hatchback,
if
though.
if true, it's better than just a plain sedan without the hatch. Uh, let's check on the Carfax.
I'm
Is
checking it right
that
now.
available on this?
I'm running
Wow,
it
look at
through.
this version of Auto Trader. It's the private seller exchange. Huh, a whole different website within Auto Trader.
Oh, wow. I don't think I noticed this before. This vehicle has been verified. Free auto check report. Okay, let's check this out then. Buyer guide. Oh, wow. How to pay. This is so nice. This is very convenient. It's still, still a lot of steps and you got to go through a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, like, it probably doesn't take out the hardest parts of the private party sale, which are the actual paperwork. But it's nice that they give you that information. Here we go. So 2 owners. Start out as a lease vehicle. No accidents. Odometer check's good. Lived its life in Maryland, New Jersey, moved its way to Georgia. Stayed in Georgia.
Are you sharing a different
Oh,
tab?
I'm sorry. Here we go. So here's the report. Its last reported mileage was 61,000 miles. That's probably the last time it was serviced. It started off its life as a lease vehicle. It has 2 owners. The auto check score, which is just the aggregate of everything, is 82, which is not bad.
Not bad.
No accidents. Started its life in New Jersey.
2 owners is really good.
2
Yeah.
owners. This guy bought it the second owner bought it in 2020, so it's not a flip by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there's no.
Can we see the mileage? No. Bummer.
No, odometer's blank on here. which is not it's not a red flag necessarily at all. It's mainly states
No.
have different regulations around whether they report to the government's vehicle database, the odometer, when they do these sort of like registration renewals or title updates. And Georgia is one of those states that doesn't report odometer. It does make like tracking cars really annoying. Every state should just report the odometer at every single time because it's a very important piece of data that it would make it easier and more confident inspiring when buyers are looking at a car if they had like consistent mileage tracking. But that's a conversation for another day. I see no red flags here. Does Auto
I
Trader
don't either.
show when a car was listed? Let's see. I don't think it does, actually. Wow, look at this. Make offer, chat with seller, test drive, buy now. Just reduced the price by $2,000 2 days ago. I mean, I don't think Carl even
So
considered it all.
unlikely the seller goes a much lower in
Correct.
terms of negotiation, but I mean, still for 75, this is.
It's a deal. It's a deal. Let's
I
chat
think
with
we
the seller.
should. Let's reach out. Yeah, let's reach out to him.
See what this. Okay, I do have an account. Well, I'll stop sharing this part so I can sign in secretly. Let's see here. This is a very
Okay.
interesting process here. I'm
So,
kind of
so, but we probably won't show the actual messaging back and forth just because the seller won't get back to us likely on this podcast. But what would be like your favorite way to send an initial message to sellers?
I typically so they get a lot of like when you're selling a car privately, you get a lot of questions, and they kind of fall in two buckets. One is a generic message that is probably from a dealership, being like, "Is it available?" or something like very generic. Or there's the messages that are like, "Hey, will you take $11,000 for the car that I'm listed for 17?" And those are just like people trying to like lowball every single car they can in hopes that somebody accepts. And then the third bucket, which is the real bucket, are the people that are actually reaching out with good intentions and are genuinely interested in purchasing your car for around the price you have it listed. How I typically differentiate those and how I send messages to people is I ask if it's still available first because obviously that's important, but then I make a comment or question specific to that vehicle. So they know that it's not, just a dealership doing it to everybody. They know it's not just a lowballer that's trying to message as many people as possible. Some sort of thoughtful message about the car specifically. I would something like this I would probably say, is free supercharging still included? Because I know some 2013s didn't have it, depending on when it rolled off the factory the factory line. And so that's a question that I think would be necessary for this one, just because that is quite the value add. I mean, in reality, that could save you
Sure.
hundreds, a couple $100 a month if you're driving pretty consistently. So I think that's going to be the question that I would ask. What about you, Drake? What would you ask first?
Yeah, I think all that makes sense. Really, just kind of like buying anything that has had previous owners is just trying to get a really clear picture on the history. What maintenance have you had to do? What problems? Do you have the records? Why are you selling? There's probably no hard, fast, specific order you have to ask those questions in, but before actually committing the time to actually drive out, think about financing or pulling the money together to go purchase the car, having all of those questions answered before time so you really feel confident in the time you're about to commit, it is super important. So if it's like, yeah, I just bought it, I don't know much about it, there is no records, I think it had some problems, I'm not really sure, like those are definitely all red flags to stay away from. Whereas on the opposite, a really great owner knows their car, knows their history, has a good reason why they're trying to sell it, can tell you work that's been done. I mean, at 109,000 miles for any car, EV or not, if they're like, yeah, no work has ever needed to be done, like that's just not true. Like
Yeah.
things go out, things that are supposed to go out that are not regular but are wear items. And I think like if in the case of the Tesla, if he's like, I don't know, it's never been serviced that Tesla, I'm not really sure. It's never been looked at. I've never had a problem. Like even though it's
That
an
would be
EV,
a
and
red
even
flag.
though those, just like you gotta find someone who does the bare minimum to take care of their car. And there's
Yep.
many people out there who don't. And there's unfortunately many cars on the road or on dealership lots or in people's driveways that have not had the bare minimum. And those are the cars that are going to end up costing you money. Someone's going to get stuck with that bill.
Yep.
Colin, real quick, let's wrap up this call segment with a rapid fire with a few different cars. I'd love your kind of thoughts. Yes, no, ask. And I think our commit to Carl at the end of this is to have a few options in play so he can make a decision um, very shortly. So, with
Perfect.
that being said, I think the first one, um, right here. So, 2014 BMW X1 X Drive with the 35i motor. What's your gut take? It's
No.
asking 14.9. It's got 72,000 miles.
My gut take is no. The 35, the
Tell me
3.5
why.
motor scared the crap out of me. The twin turbos on the 3.5 scare the crap out of me.
But as a former 3.5 owner in a few different ranges, this is the N55 motor, not the N52. N55 being
Earlier.
significantly more reliable. I would much rather have someone look into this car than the lesser 2.8 of these early 2012, 2013 to 2015. A lot of problems. I've only seen a few cars make it past like 150,000 miles with that 2.8 before
Wow.
having problems. They definitely started to fix things in 2016 plus. But if I was to look at getting any sort of 3.5 BMW from this era, I would either make sure that if I'm looking from a '07 to a 2011, that the turbos have been replaced, or go for the later N55 motor, which has a sequential turbo setup that is supposedly a lot more reliable, like this one.
It's so
I
interesting how
will
that.
say on the specific car, foggy headlights, a little, a little dirty screen. You start seeing these pictures, it's like, what? These are easy things the dealership could have done to make this car look a little bit more presentable. Even the pictures, like just taking it in front of their whole lot, in front of kind of like an older looking building with seemingly
All of
like
the
auction imports.
some of the best advice I've ever had is when you're buying a car, you're buying half of the part of the buying process is buying the car, half of the process is buying the actual seller and figuring out everything you can about the seller, whether it's a dealership or a private party. And so, I love your perspective of when you're looking at the pictures, you're not just looking at the car, you're looking at the surroundings, you're looking at the condition of the car and the easy things they could have done but haven't done. I mean, foggy wind. Was that a?
Look at that
Is that a?
little
Oh, I
special
see a little box.
edition Boxster back there with the red. What is that's
Yeah,
a special edition. I don't remember what it's called though.
that's the
But anyways,
987 though. Mine has the same louvers as that in the door. That's the 987. So 2007, 2006 plus would be that boxer. It's not the early egg-shaped headlight one, which is actually
sure.
going up in value. If you click on the next tab, I have an immediate comment for you. No Mitsubishi Outlanders. I'm not a fan. I mean, I've driven one. I had one as a rental car.
2020, and you're still like, no. Wow.
No. There's a reason why it's in his price range. It's 2020. They're not good cars. They're rental car specials. This car likely was a rental car because the only people that bought these cars new were rental companies, and this car probably was sent to the auction after a hard life of living as a rental car because everybody knows the fastest cars on the road are rental cars because you don't care about them. And yeah, no for me. That's a no for me, Doug.
Kia Soul.
I just think he can do better. I think Carl would be the person that would rather have a slightly older, slightly higher mileage, nicer car than a relatively brand new car that's in his price range, like 2021. That's 15.9. I mean, there's a reason why, and it's because it's not a very nice car.
Hyundai
That's my take.
Tucson.
I like the Hyundai
What
Tucsons.
do we got on this?
They got a lot better in the generation after this. The new generation is pretty cool, I'd say. But these are good cars. This is when Hyundai started to take a turn. 2018 is pretty new, but it's not like too new where you're wondering why the heck it's in the price range. Um, Not a bad car. This is a safe pick. This would do the transportation piece well. It would be comfortable, has good enough tech. It He would not complain about this car. Do I think there are probably better options that would get him going in a emotional sense more? Yes. But he's in a bind right now, and this would be the type of car that could fill a gap. And realistically, it's the type of car that, a 15.9 for a Hyundai Tucson 2018, it's 5 years old. You can drive it for a year, maybe sell it for 14. They're probably going to hold their value pretty well. They're not going to take a dive or anything. And so if you wanted to, this would be a great gap car for him. I think a Tiguan's a great car too. The Tiguan I think makes a ton of sense for him. It's the German engineering that he loves and wants. They're good cars by all accounts. They do have some issues once they start getting up there in mileage. But I don't foresee Carl having this car and driving it 60,000 miles in the first 2 years. This is a car that he's probably going to drive 10 or 12,000 miles a year around town, go on some road trips. So the Tiguan is a good car. I think that between the Tiguan and the Tesla Model S, that's I'm extremely biased on it, but I think that the used Tesla Model S's are very overlooked on the market, and they weren't overlooked on the market for like a 6-month span when Tesla values were shooting up, and because there was no availability, and it just brought up all of it. But then as soon as availability came back and Tesla price started going down, those things dropped like a rock and overcorrected, in my opinion. And I think that they are some of, if not the best deal on the used car market today.
Okay, well, we will keep everybody updated with Carl's car situation. I think we got a few options here that we're going to send over. Hopefully, none of them sell out from underneath him like he has experienced 2 times in a row, and hopefully, he can be behind the wheel of his new ride very shortly. Colin, I have just a little battery left remaining in my continuity camera, but that being said, I'd love to spend the last few minutes talking about your thoughts on converting maybe some of your old rides into something else.
Yeah, I'm going to be utilizing VehicleGenius services myself. Um, I have had a 2007 Porsche Cayman for over 3 years now. Bought it in Atlanta, Georgia, sight unseen from eBay. It was right in the heart of COVID, and I put a bid in, not thinking that I was going to win. Walked away from the computer, came back, had an email saying, "Congrats, you won." I was like, "Oh crap! Now I got to buy this car." Um, kind of a unprepared purchase, which is rare for me. But it's been amazing. It's not the cleanest car. It's not the best. It's not in the greatest condition cosmetically. If you're looking at Caymans across the board, because Caymans typically are kept in pretty great condition by their owners, and the previous owners of my car probably didn't treat it the best way. But it's a testament to the reliability of those cars that it just runs perfectly. That said, there is an issue right now with the battery draw. If I park it more than a day, the battery dies, and that has been led to extreme frustration, which I'm sure that some of you in the audience can attest to the frustration of going to start your car and it just doesn't start, and you need a new battery. And then the problem with this one is even if I got a new battery, that wouldn't fix it, right? The issue with my car is there's a power draw somewhere, so I need to figure that out. But I think we're coming to a point where I have too many cars. I have a couple other cars at my parents' house, and I think it's time to consolidate into something that does a little bit of everything. Um, I've been thinking Porsche Macan, Porsche Cayenne. I've also been thinking Panamera. I don't think I realized the price ranges on the Panamera, and they are right in line with how much I want to spend in that maybe $20,000 to $25,000 range. It's a lot of car for the money. It's a lot of car for the money. I know it would be one of those early ones. I know the styling isn't for everybody, but man, it would accomplish everything that I would need it to do, because I want something sporty that I could take out on the back roads and kind of get that fix in for me that the Cayman was filling. I also want something that is great on road trips, which my current Porsche is not. And my other car, the Tesla Model 3, is, it's good on road trips, but in the Midwest where I am, the infrastructure is not the greatest, and it has led to some issues. And I also need something to, carry some stuff. I'd love a hatchback. That's why I was thinking SUV, like a Macan or a Cayenne. I think a Panamera would fit in there too, and I don't need that much space. So that's kind of what I'm between right now. I'm like staying on the Porsche vein. I don't think I can get rid of that like itch. But Drake, in your opinion, if the budget is $22,000, I'm willing to go any years. I don't have any qualms about like too old, too new. I don't really care about that. Mileage is a concern, but I'm more likely to go high mileage if there is a clear and documented history and that I can, have a good feeling with the owner. Of those three cars, what would you do?
I mean, I love Porsches. I think they are truly a special car, built very different than even other German auto cars. I think if you're a car enthusiast, they really cater to that. And Porsche cars generally, if they have a good history, have been really well taken care of because people who like Porsches are oftentimes car people and they take care of the right things to make the car last longer. Are they all going to be perfect? Are they going to all cosmetically be the greatest thing ever? No, just like any used car, that's going to be a gamble no matter where you go. But at least you can feel good if you know the history of the Porsche, if it's been serviced properly, that this car is going to treat you just as well as any other used Porsche of the same year or mileage. And what I'm really leaning Colin to think about is the certified pre-owned Porsches. You can go on PorscheFinder.us. I'll share my screen and show you. But I think this is a great way to find out cars that are going to come with the full factory Porsche bumper to bumper warranty, regardless. Oh, that's the wrong tab. Regardless of how many miles they currently have or how old the car is. So if you buy a certified pre-owned Porsche, then you get the same benefits of buying a brand new Porsche with their bumper to bumper warranty. So obviously
I
maintenance
guess
is still
certified
oil
Cayenne
changes,
for
wear items.
24.9.
I know. I just looked up this dealership. It doesn't look like they have it listed on their website. There's no picture there, so I don't know if it's brand new. But dude, I'm telling you, like 95,000 miles. It's the base, but it's the platinum edition, so you get some nicer options. Carrera white with black and Luxor beige. That's a great package. What else do you got here? You got the
The turbo
turbo
wheel.
wheels, lane departure warning and lane changes assist on a 2014 is a crazy option. Comfort lighting, power seats, so they're upgraded seats, and that's it on top of the standard options. One owner, which is incredible, and you get the 24 months unlimited mileage warranty. Colin, you could put 100,000 miles on this car in 2 years, and
I would
anything
just
that goes wrong outside of regular wear items is covered. And you bring it to any Porsche dealership, they'll service it and they'll give you a brand new loaner. I mean, that's a cool experience for the same price as a 2023 Kia Soul.
I know. I
You
know.
know, like
I'm
so
this.
I'm looking here. You got a Macan base for 30,000. Now, what's interesting on the Porsche Finder is you used to be able to search nationwide, which was a hack. But now you kind of got to think about it in like 500-mile segments around the nation. So if I think like Florida, if I think Dallas, if I think Seattle, here you go, man. 2016 Cayenne. You're one away from the CarPlay, which is too bad. 27,
I
72,000 miles. This is at Porsche West Palm Beach, which I personally know a few of the sales are up there, and it's one of the better Porsche dealerships in that area. I couldn't recommend it enough. Here's an S Macan, so you get a little bit sportier setup, and you get a Porsche-derived motor versus the base Macan. The Cayennes are all Porsche-derived motors, which is cool.
Can you go ahead and click on one of these other Cayennes? Because the thing that's tripping me up is the fact that said turbo wheels. Like I'm looking at
Yeah,
pictures.
so you can option the turbo wheels.
You can option the turbo wheels without having the turbo.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, that's such a. Oh, I'm looking at a picture of one right now. I
So
would just.
this has got Cayenne. These are the Cayenne design too, right? So this is definitely a little bit more
Yeah,
base here. The
I would.
turbo wheels are generally the nicest wheels. Uh, that's a sick color, that beige.
Yeah,
Very
yeah, yeah,
Florida.
yeah.
Mahogany metallic.
Mahogany.
So if we look, let's look at Dallas
That
here.
first one, I'm still stuck on that very first Cayenne with no pictures. I'm kind of
I
mad.
don't
There's no.
know if it's real though. No picture. It's kind of that'd be a little sus. Look at this, the Cayenne SE hybrid, dude. Get some. There's this is
My
32, a
budget is
little bit
not
out of
that
your range
high.
here, but you get the new.
I
Oh, but
wish.
this is look at this spec, dude.
Wow.
And the hybrids generally have a lot more options and get pretty good gas mileage. And you really wouldn't have to worry about would I need more maintenance on the hybrid or not, because you probably wouldn't keep it over 2 years unless it was actually the greatest car ever. But 416 horsepower with the hybrid motor there.
And it
I
has the
mean,
warranty.
this is a stick. You get the PDLS, panoramic roof, premium package plus. So that gets you LED, comfort lighting, park assist, heated front rear seats. You get the 14-way seats, Cayenne Sport Edition wheels, lane
These prices keep
heat
going
change
up for some
assist.
reason. I mean, this is an insane deal.
I mean, that's it. That's a cool ass car, dude. I would love that. I mean, here's a 16 for 29. It's a base, but
I mean, I
let's
think I'd rather
see.
pay
I
up
think
to get the
the S
E.
hybrid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now you did say at the beginning of your search you'd like Panameras. In terms of certified pre-owned, Panameras are definitely the 40 plus, 38
Yep.
plus. So I don't know. I think if you have the option to get a certified pre-owned car, you would be really missing out if you didn't do that.
I
And
think the only Panamera that I would consider at this point, like literally the only car, my oh my god, yeah, wow, that's an amazing deal.
oh,
Wow,
29.
my girlfriend's father is purchasing a new Panamera. He's having it specced, and he's doing the pickup from Germany. He's doing the whole experience,
Oh,
and
what a nice experience. That's cool.
yeah, but he's trading in his 2013 Panamera 4S. Has about 70,000 miles on it. He has absolutely
Oh.
babied it. It's been in the garage every night. He replaced the transmission out of warranty, out of pocket,
Whoa,
because he
whoa,
felt there was like some
whoa.
sort of like slight anomaly, and he was like, "Well, if there's an anomaly, it's broken. Like I need to replace it." And the dealership identified this problem, and I think he spent like $14,000 replacing the transmission on this car from the dealership.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
all receipts, everything. And I don't want that car just to go to the dealership and be traded in because it's been babied way too much. So like that's the only Panamera I think that I would consider purchasing. But that's like an edge case, like unique situation. I think if I
If you
was
can,
looking just generically without any sort of connections anywhere, this would like Cayenne Macan around these years certified is the route I'm going to go. Diesel, I can't do it.
but they're good though. I hear great things
That
about them because they come with
2017 is an
they
amazing
become
deal.
a 12-year warranty at the time because of the VW Scandalgate on all of the Cayenne diesels on top of the certified pre-owned. You wouldn't spend a dime in maintenance
Really?
for this car for a long time. And I heard from a number of Porsche mechanics, as soon as that 12 year is up, you can tune these motors incredibly and get 450 foot-pounds of torque comfortably all day, and you're 35 miles to the gallon as soon as you put like a Porsche design diesel chip in there, which they all like. I don't know. I've met a few guys who love them. Colin, we were in Detroit, and that white one out there had a sticker of the chip on the back, so it was clearly tuned a similar
Oh,
way.
wow.
Without the tune, I think they're a little bit. I think they're a little bit of a dog, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's
But
cool
that
to have a
warranty is
diesel
very
Porsche.
compelling. I didn't know about the additional 12-year warranty. Wow, look at this. A
Look at
2013.
this one with
Wow.
47,000 miles. I
Seems like
mean,
a
it's
deal.
older, but it's mint. This is the This is the grandpa spec. This is the winter
Yeah,
spec. Look at
I
those
love
wheels,
the
dude. I
grandpa
bet
spec.
this is
I always love the grandpa spec.
the smoothest ride. Oh wow. That's awesome. 47,000 miles. This thing is mint. It has been babied.
Oh
It comes with a
wow,
two-year
the
warranty,
wood trim on the steering wheel.
$25,000. You could probably trade your Cayenne in and only pay a little bit on top.
Cayman.
Or I mean your Cayman. Yeah.
Wow,
Whoa, you got
tempting.
options, dude.
It's in
All right.
Beaverton, Oregon. It'd be quite the road trip back to Indianapolis.
They'll ship the car. They'll ship the car. If you buy at CPO, they have to throw in shipping in the car a lot of times, or you can convince them. So it'd be a little Porsche delivery truck coming in. That's
Good
what I had done
nugget.
on my Macan.
That's a good nugget. Well, we've nerded out quite a
All
bit on
right.
this episode. I think we'll probably wrap it up there. That's Vehicle Genius podcast numero trace. Happy to keep this thing going and continue to help people out. We'll have an update on Carl by next week. Hopefully he has a car. We'll fill everybody in on what he bought and go from there. Bye.